Welcome to the last installment of my 2024 temperature blanket project. 2024, you might ask? Don't you mean 2025? No, you did hear that correctly. This project is indeed last year's temperature blanket and has been finished since April. I filmed and released a couple of vlogs on the project earlier last year and then filmed so much more of the project, but just never got around to editing the footage into vlogs. This project is so near and dear to my heart, and I just decided that I really want to edit the footage into a final vlog, so this is that video. I figured this is also a good time to bring it up since a lot of you might be currently planning your own temperature blanket for next year, so this might serve as some inspiration, or you might be working on finishing the one that you're making this year, and this can keep you company while you do. This vlog covers a selection of days between December last year and April this year. As we go through the video, I will explain a little bit more about what I'm tracking and what all of the different colours mean, but for now I'll just let the vlog speak for itself. This is one of my longer videos, so go grab yourself a hot beverage and a project and enjoy. I'll catch you at the end.
Con la idea de meterle un tiro así, no sé, en el pie para compensar. Estoy esperando dársela de meterte un tiro en la cabeza y no sé muy bien por qué.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Squeams.
No.
Bobbit, no. Squeeze. That face.
Love it. Noogie, 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 noogie.
Squeezy.
You can get away with that. I don't think so.
You don't think so? He thinks so.
He thinks so.
You think so.
watching sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things. Mount Laurel high fives, Mars in spring, rainbow trout and hummingbird wing. Golden, I follow only golden, golden, golden things. Gold hair, gold rings, gold leaves, gold anything, golden. I'll follow only golden, golden, golden things. Walk up the river by my son. Feet step over splinters of the moon. Golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things. Gold birds, gold string, gold words, gold anything, golden. I follow only golden, 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 golden things. Golden, I follow only golden, golden, golden things.
Look at that. The whole year.
Yeah,
365 of them.
366 was a leap year.
True.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Stoked.
Yes. I think she's finished.
Alright, well, that is the end of this vlog. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, I hope you try making a temperature blanket yourself one day. They are so much fun. I unfortunately didn't get time to make one this year, but I am planning on making another one next year, and I'm really looking forward to it. I am planning on making another video sometime soon of just kind of breaking down what I thought worked and what didn't, and what my plans are for future temperature blankets, so keep an eye out for that. It'll be a little bit more of a chatty video. Before I let you go, I just wanted to give a big shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Patreon is where I release monthly tutorials on how to make a lot of different earring designs in micro crochet. We do a whole bunch of other stuff over there. I release color palettes, color palette inspiration, blogs on what I've been up to in the background. I also release these YouTube videos a day or two early. If that sounds interesting to you, that is a link down in the description. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments. Do you think you would ever try a micro crochet temperature blanket? Or maybe some other type of temperature blanket, such as like embroidery or cross stitch? I'm really curious. Other than that, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video real soon. Bye!